Hey there. In this video, I will be going over MAST, the Webflow framework by No Code Supply Co, and building out this layout here. This layout is from frontendmentor.com. This is a resource for front-end developers to go look at a bunch of pre-built designs and pre-built just projects that you can go on there and practice your front-end skills with it. So this one I thought looked perfect for MAST just because this looks like a layout that needs CSS grid, but you can actually, just this top half is what we'll be building, you can use MAST's Flexbox grid for it too. So this is it already built out. You can see everything in there. And what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna start clean. So whenever I build with MAST, I always think, can this be built with it? And also, what does it look like on mobile? So what we'll do is we will kind of map it out and go from there. So do the frame, so add F, and we're just gonna kind of draw it out. So this will be a box. So this will be one column. So the way it works is you can only span left and right. You can't span up and down. So if we kind of strategize this a little bit, and we know that this is going to be a column, what we can do is we can also know that this right here is going to be the second column of it. And then this one will be spanning 8 columns because MAST in itself is a... Yep, so this one does, I was just checking to see if there's any grids there. So MAST is a 12 column grid. So this one is gonna work pretty nice with it. So yeah, this will just be another one. So yeah, that'll be the other one. Terrible right there. And then we can do is we'll see, okay, so this will be one row. And then another row can be made up of these in here. So we'll have this be a sub row of this main one, and then this will control these two right here. So that'll be a column. Make this blue since it's a sub row. Doesn't really matter. So we're just mentally drawing these out. So that'll be 2 columns, and this will also be a column that is filling the whole. So all 12 columns of this row will be filled, and then these two will each be 50-50. So now if we look at how this is responsive, and just to double check that it will work. So this one, if we start up here, that will collapse up there, and this will collapse below that. So this is all part of its own row, so this will work just fine for MAST, because this will just drop underneath, and that will be at top, and then this will drop below. Where this would get tricky and that we would need to use CSS grid is if we were to take this text and say we wanted it under there, or if we wanted this button in the paragraph to be below this card. We wouldn't be able to use MAST because, well, we could, we just had to do some like conditional hiding, mainly because this is part, so these are 2 separate columns. So anything in this column has to be above this or it can be below it, but we can't specifically take things out of there. We would need CSS grid for that because these would all be in themselves their own cells that were placed within the grid. So now what we'll do is we'll go in to start building it just to show you how it's all set up. So in MAST, a lot of the layouts use the row. And yeah, before I jump into this, this is why it's super important to pre-plan with MAST, because if you had to use grid, you can still use MAST. This is what you do is you'd make a custom grid for it, like hero_grid in this sense, and then you would do it that way. But the way that MAST is structured is it's supposed to cover 80% of the layouts, or most of the layouts you can use the classes for it. So it's super nice that way. So this one will work perfect for it. So we'll add in a row. So in MAST, you always start with a row. We'll add in a column. This is going to be the column large 8 because we know we want to span 2/3 of it. And then we get, the nicest thing about MAST is we can already declare what we want it to look like on tablet and the rest of the breakpoints. So what we'll do is we'll add medium 12, which is already had, because in the medium we want the image at the top or we want this block to span the whole top of it. So what we'll do is we'll drop in another column, and then columns span themselves, so technically we wouldn't need to declare anything here unless we're wanting to have some like different breakpoints, because if we go to medium, this one will just drop below this because this top one's 12. But in here we're going to have another div, which will be a row, and within that we'll drop a column, and this will be a column that spans all 12. The reason why we have to put column large 12 on this is because if we put a couple of empty divs in there, the way the columns work is they'll just span like that. So technically we need 3 columns, but this top one is going to be 12. And in here, we'll drop a div. This will be the hero image wrap, which I already have the class. I just took the height because on mobile, it's the exact same height as it is on desktop, so I'm just gonna have it shrink as it goes across. Then we'll drop in that image, which is just hero image, and we will choose that one. And I already have it set to the top. I just don't want to jump it to do many normal Webflow stuff to help with time. So now this top is good. What we'll add in here is just H1, and we will pull all of these frames out of there. And drop that in there. So now we have the next column, which is a paragraph and a button. With read more. And then this button has 1.81, so what I'll do is I'll just round that up to 2 rem so we can wrap it with a div block and do U margin bottom 2. And it's not 3 rem, it's 2 rem because of collapsing margins and that kind of like phenomenon in CSS, which is super nice with the preset margins. So then this heading has a margin at the bottom right there, which we don't need because we want it to be flush to the bottom, so we'll just round that out. And now we're already done with this section, and then MAST has a really nice utility, which is the card. And on this card, we want to set the background to black and the text to white. And then within the card, we actually have the card body, which is what has the padding, which I have preset. I did that in the styles. If you want to check them out, you can in here. And then within that card body, we have an H2 with the text of yellow. And this will say new. And then below that, so this text will actually have a bottom margin of 2 based on the design. And then we'll drop in a div. And now what we'll be doing is we'll be building out these new blocks. And this will get me to the point, when I dig into these, it's super important to know that with these utilities, it's important to use Webflow's components and use it to the best of, or just like use components in Webflow as much as you can with heavy utility frameworks like MAST. Because you will find yourself, if you use too many random spacing blocks, spacing wrappers, all that stuff without using components and wrapping it, you're gonna have to do a lot of like manual changes to layouts and to components and to different cards if you don't make them a component themselves. I'm not gonna dig into that. So we'll add a div here, and we need an H3 and a paragraph. So we'll drop H3 and a paragraph. And this will be use text white. Since I have the normal one set to black, that's why it was white right there. And we'll drop like that. And just to double check the spacing, don't need that frame. That is half a rem right there. But as you can see, these are all similar. They're the same exact component with the divider in the middle. So what I'm actually going to do, and then the space, so we'll use the divider for the space, which is going to be 2 rem on each side. We're actually going to make this a component. And we'll just call this new news. And then what I'll do is I'll just use this. And the reason why is if for some reason we want that text at the top to be something different, it wouldn't be global, which I can just show here quickly. So like, say we have all 3 of these. Well, I use the white here, but say for some reason in the design we want to change this to the primary color. Well, now I gotta change that primary color there every single time. Where if everything is linked into these, I kind of call them myself micro components, all we gotta do is relink this. But all we gotta do is just change it in one spot. It's also super nice with branching because in branching you can't go to other pages and just copy sections. You need to use everything that's in a component. So if we had to rebuild this layout with a branch, it'd be super nice to have all of this stuff already put into a component. But what I'll do is I'll add a div, and I already have a divider built out, so I'll just use that. Which this is actually just using top and bottom 2M, and I just put it in its own class. But what we could do is we could take this off and use MAST classes. So u-margin top 2 and u-margin bottom 2. And this would work perfect because it's in its own divider component. So if we use this somewhere else, but say I want all dividers to have a margin bottom 3, it'll change everywhere. The only thing is don't get too complex with these selectors because then it's end up just taking longer than you need to do it. So then we can just copy over all of that text. And actually we are done with this layout. Making sure. So 1.8, so this is a little tall for like the gap. That's why it's not like lining right down there. But as you can see, we have that layout. It doesn't look exactly like it, but it is complete here with everything. So this is a quick rundown of MAST. If you enjoy this and you would like to see me run through MAST some more and do some more breakdowns and just kind of show you how I use components, in that sense, feel free to let me know. I guess it did not make this responsive, but it is naturally. So the only thing that's not responsive is this right there. Oh, it actually automatically breaks down. So yeah, since we didn't declare any columns here with MAST, it will actually automatically wrap once it gets to a certain point. So it didn't even need to add classes there because we knew we wanted it to be 50-50. So breakdown, and then perfect right there. And it wrapped exactly like we wanted it to. Just like the Figma right there. Which is super beautiful with MAST. So, but yeah. If you're going to reuse this component, I would take this whole section or this whole row. Another cool thing is if you're going to have like multiple or across a bunch of layouts, you could wrap this column in a component, which means you can control a layout within this. But yeah, I'll dig into way more kind of like advanced and pro tips with MAST, but I just wanted to get the gist of showing that you can build complex layouts with the flex column or like the flex grid, not needing the actual CSS grid. But yeah, if this was fun and interesting to you, feel free to let me know and I can do a couple more of these. And if you have any comments or any other tips while you're using MAST or any other frameworks, feel free to let me know. Thanks. Bye.